You used to make tech reviews and videos for The Verge, a very big publication out there on the internet. And just a little bit over a month ago, you went solo. Still on YouTube, making videos, but now by yourself. How's it feel?
It's crazy. I almost have no words, but what I can tell you for sure is that I have been creating content for the internet. At The Verge, I did it for like 7 years, yet I am learning so much more. There's just this whole other side to creating content, mostly the business side that I knew nothing about. And I had the creative and the technical, like video chops down, but I dove into a sea of being a small business
Mm-hmm.
that nothing could have prepared me for.
There's a lot to
Does
unpack
that
there
resonate
already.
with you?
Yeah. It's just because I have a similar trajectory where it's just like in the pandemic, I had all the equipment, I had all the tools to make videos, but I had no experience what YouTube actually means and how to make that work. How much of this jump was actually planned? Like, did you think about it for a long time, or was it just like a moment in time?
I always knew that at some point I would outgrow The Verge. I didn't know where I would go next. But it started to become very clear when the pandemic happened and I was making everything alone anyways, that maybe I could just do this on my own. And that's when the seed was sort of planted.
How much did you prepare for that, or think about that?
I thought I prepared a lot for it. I would do these career interviews with other creators or management companies or whatnot. And I thought that that was preparing me.
Mm-hmm.
And it did in some ways. But now that I'm in it, I quickly realized that I had no idea what I was doing, and that no one really knows anything. Like all of our life paths are so our own,
Mm-hmm.
and they're so unique, especially on the internet. And so you really just have to start doing it and figuring out what works and what doesn't, and crossing your fingers. Really, I believe there's a fair bit of luck in there.
I think what a lot of creators face is when they get into this, maybe they had some, one video that really took off and that gave them the confidence, or something else that gave them the confidence to go all in. But it's such a up and down when you release videos on YouTube. And
Oh
I don't
yes.
know, now this is yours. Were you confronted with the stats in any way back then? Are you looking at YouTube Studio at all, or are you trying to like ignore all the numbers? Like, where are you on that?
I mean, I love YouTube Studio. I love the numbers. I refresh that thing more than I ever should. And I've had some creators tell me you don't have it on your phone, but that's half the fun. I think for me though is that I like fell on my face a lot at The Verge.
Mm.
I failed a lot already. I've had a lot of videos flunk. And sure, my income wasn't like exactly um, reliant on videos doing well, but personally, I've faced that 10 out of 10 on YouTube Studio. But I hate that metric because I fundamentally believe that you just have to keep making stuff. And when you see 10 out of 10, it makes you not want to make stuff. Like, I get what YouTube's doing with that number. And of course, you need to know how videos are doing. But it's so discouraging in a way that is not helpful.
It's definitely tough when you get a 10 out of 10. It's just like, but why?
Yes, you can like be the analytic person and you can go back and you can study the why. And that's important to know. Or you could be like, that didn't work. Maybe it was because of this, but let me just try this now. And I think that that's more helpful.
If I were to tell somebody else about you, how would I describe you? Who is Becca?
I'll start with my content. I think you would describe my content as she's a tech creator who reviews tech, but takes it a lot of places. Yeah, this is the crazy part. I haven't worked out my own elevator pitch.
So then tell me a little bit
She
about,
takes tech
yeah,
outside.
that's the
That's the
tagline.
line.
Did you think a lot about your quote unquote strategy or what you're going to make videos about? Or is it very much like a week by week decision where you're going with the channel?
I had the first like 6 weeks pretty well planned out. And I still try to plan at least a couple of weeks in advance
Hmm.
because I start shooting for videos while I'm filming other videos still. Um, but at this point, I'm going rogue. I
Okay.
have a very good friend who I bounce ideas off all the time, and I think this like, he's like, you should definitely be more thought out and planned. But I think part of what makes my videos work is that they are just like what I'm thinking and feeling at that time. And I just deep dive into them, and it's like where my mind's at and where my like soul's at. And I don't think that's going to work forever, but right now it's working.
I really enjoyed the iPod video where you said the iPod was
Okay.
like my favorite camcorder now. I think
Yeah.
on paper that's not a great video to make, but I really enjoyed it.
And the funny thing about that video is that I was supposed to be making my iPhone 16 Pro video then,
Yeah.
but I couldn't get the iPhone in time. And so I was like scrambling. I was like, shoot, what am I going to do? And I had had that iPod for 8 months or so. I had already been shooting with it just for fun, just because it was something that interests me. And it was one of those moments where I was like sitting on my desk and I was like, oh, I'll just make a video about that.
Hmm.
And I thought for sure that video was going to be 10 out of 10, you could say.
Yeah.
Um, but it resonated with other folks too for some reason, the nostalgia probably. Um, and it worked. And it's like still gaining views. It's like a really nice evergreen piece of content.
Yeah.
It also has like a really personal story of mine of moving to the middle of nowhere that I've been really wanting to share but didn't know how to fit it in to tech. Um, yeah, it's been great, and it's something that's referenced a lot when I'm on podcasts and such. And I just think that's so cool. And that's one of those moments where on paper, bad idea. That week I was like totally scared that I didn't have a video going up. And then I just did this thing and other folks thought it was cool too. And maybe that's that little bit of luck.
I mean, it's a very unique video out there, that's for sure. And people follow people, right?
I like to think so.
Yeah. But you did mention it took you a little bit longer to get the latest iPhone. And I'm kind of curious
Yeah.
because one point you made in your announcement video for your, going solo, you said it was difficult to get gear at the Verge. You were kind of the last in line to get the gear often. So
Yeah.
has it become harder or easier now to get your hands on gear?
Well, it's a different sort of struggle.
Okay.
At the Verge, you're sent review units, and I'm sent review units now
Yeah.
too. But at the Verge, you're sent every review unit. Anything you want, you can a company will send you because it's the Verge,
Right.
right? Um, but when it came to like the big products, the iPhone or like the Rabbit R1, you're only sent so many units, and so the big writers are going to get them. So that was the struggle there, is like not being one of the big writers and never going to be one of the big writers because I'm not a writer. I'm a video creator. Um, Now the struggle is I don't get review units of everything I want, which is a-okay. I'm not complaining about that. It is what it is. Um, so I have to buy things and I have to go pick them up at stores.
Just like a regular
And I know
person.
that, yeah, which I love. Of course, everyone wants to be sent the products, right?
Yeah.
But it feels good to be a little bit more like everyone else. And I know that I hope to grow to a point where I get invited to the Apple events. Of course, every creator wants that.
Hmm.
And so that is something I want, like everybody else. But I just finished up a video about the tech I use every day. And the coolest part about it is that I don't use all the fancy stuff that most tech creators do. And I think, a year from now, I might have a better display. I might have a better laptop. But right now, I'm in this really unique position where, like, I have what I have and I can still make what I can make. And I think that's cool.
And it gives you the perspective of a normal consumer, which
Yes,
is
which is
very
important.
valuable. I have a quote or like a sentence I keep reminding myself often when I have a new idea, when I make a decision. It's just like, do what you can with what you have. Because it's very often that we're just like, no, I need this tool to do this project or whatever. No, 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 no. You have everything you need. You just like try it out and maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe you do need that one light. But maybe it's perfectly fine with what you have.
And you can do so much
Yeah.
with so little now. Like you really can do so much by
Especially if you're developing a new interest, it's always good to just start with the most basic version of everything and see if you actually like it before you invest whatever thousands of dollars.
I think the other thing is rent. Just
Oh,
like
yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize that you can just as a normal person rent a camera online and they'll ship it to you and you
Yeah.
can use it for the weekend and then you ship it back. If you want to like know if you like a camera, rent it for 5 days and then see if you pick it up every day. And if you don't pick it up every day, you probably don't need to
Yeah.
buy it.
I'm actually renting my MacBook Air at the moment.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. There's a service here. I think it's in the US as well, Grover, where you can rent even I think washing machines, like everything electronics. It's crazy.
Oh my god, hell yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And just in terms of like e-waste,
Yeah,
if we're all sharing stuff, that's just such a better
exactly.
way of doing it.
Exactly.
I'm also like a huge you'll see this in my video about the tech I use every day, but I'm a big like refurbished and open box
Mm,
buyer. I buy almost everything refurbished or open box. Like it's like buying a new car versus buying like a used car.
yeah.
Like I'm not gonna spend $10,000 more dollars to lose immediately when I drive off the lot. That's just insane to me.
But on the subject of money, did you have any strategy in place for that, or just like it's gonna work out? We'll see.
So I had a little bit. I'll be really transparent. I left the Verge with about $7,000 in savings, which isn't a lot.
It's not a year. I know that.
Not at all. But I also left knowing that I could freelance a lot
Yeah,
if needed.
fair.
I have a lot of contacts in the media industry. I can shoot, I can edit, I can direct.
Hmm.
I knew that if all else fails, like I have those gigs that I can take on. But the plan was always get YouTube going, get AdSense going, get Patreon going, get all my pots cooking, you could
Hmm.
say. And then also look for management to be able to get like brand deals and such. I knew going into this that I knew nothing about brand deals and that whole ad space. And so it was a no-brainer to like try to find management to handle that for me, because I was already going to be learning a lot, and learning how to deal with brands was not the first thing on my list that I wanted to learn how to do. I use the rocket ship emoji a lot because that's how it feels. Like it feels like the rocket ship gets like launched and it's like dipping, 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 and like I'm hoping that it's gonna like you know thrusters are gonna kick into gear and send me somewhere.
Hmm.
And it does feel like now I'm starting to get a little bit momentum. Now, that being said, would I recommend anyone quits their job with $7,000 to start being a content creator? No.
Did you do anything else to make this a, let's call it a safer bet?
Not really. Something else about me is that I'm like slightly impulsive, and I also like I experience fear, but it doesn't really stop me.
Mm, interesting.
And so this like was a real big like leap into the unknown that I was afraid of, but I wasn't going to let that hold me back. Also, I like really want to hammer this point home. This isn't me starting something completely new from scratch.
Right.
I've been doing this. This was my job for years. Um, so it's such a different circumstance. And again, I am really grateful for that.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this conversation, if you're learning something, you might also like the Orbit newsletter, something I write every week to help you become a better creator. Every Friday, I share a simple framework or a practical exercise that you can start using immediately, regardless if you are a complete beginner or a seasoned professional. My goal with this is to make it the best creator resource out there. Help you see things from a new perspective, give you a little exercise that helps you level up your game. So sign up via the link below. It's completely free and I would love to have you there because it also keeps you up to date on the whole Orbit journey. How is it going with building a home for creators? What does it actually mean? A little, behind the scenes weekly update. And at the bottom, I always share my favorite things I've seen this week. Good content that inspires you over the weekend. So, with that out of the way, let's get back to the show. On that note of doing it for years, one big theme for me this year has to just be putting systems into place, not just like winging it every week, but just like building sort of structures that help me just be more consistent and make this
Yeah.
sustainable over the long run. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you learned at the Verge or maybe somewhere else that kind of gave you a head start, so to speak?
I could use a lot more systems,
Hmm.
that's for sure. And that's definitely like the next phase as I enter like 2025. It's going to be like I really need to like be under more control. But the biggest thing I learned, and this kind of ties into like the idea of like failing, is just keep going. Like you just have to keep going. Keep making videos, keep talking to people, keep doing podcasts, keep learning, keep being curious. Just keep going because as soon as you stop, you're going to lose so much momentum. And sometimes it's hard to keep going. Like this weekend, I the last thing I wanted to do was work. It was beautiful outside. I'm a big hiker, and I also, was starting to feel a little like burnt out on what I was working on. All I wanted to do was like walk away from my desk. But just like hunkering down and literally tying myself to my desk and like now I'm really stoked about the video I made. And I feel really good walking into Monday morning. Like I'm stoked to be here with you and I can spend as much time as I want here. Like what's something for you that you've learned that makes this all work?
For a while, I had a job editing corporate interviews, and that really prepared me for what I'm doing now because it's just like if you have to edit 4 interviews in a day, you just get fast, right? So like you have stacked timelines and like you just learn the ins and outs of like how can I cut even 10 seconds off a process. And so that mindset really stuck with me of just like optimizing every little step, particularly in post production.
Mm.
That might be one of the big ones. But honestly, when I was working in independent film, I always thought it was so much about the gear and what you have and your resume. But the reality is just about the people. If you're friends with a good director, it's all nice. Like that's not just to say like, oh, you gotta know the right people. It's just about build connections over spending money on gear. I think that's really been the biggest mindset shift for me over the last few years.
Yeah, it's who you know, not what you know or what you own,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
That's been a theme for me like this last week. Like every week every day I learn something new. But a big theme for me recently, like there's been some opportunities that have come up from people I know or, podcasts I've done or it's all about knowing people.
And it's so much more fun with people, particularly in the creator space. I mean, I was
Yeah.
saying in the beginning before we recorded, it's just like I'm really here for solo creators now because they have, I don't know, a vision, a dream, whatever they want to call it, but they have nobody to talk to about, or very rarely. And it's just this like, let's just get together and like create this virtual water cooler or gym for creatives or some kind of space where we can get quality feedback. Basically, what you described in how it started at the Verge, of just like hanging out, having fun, and growing together. Right? That's what I hope I can do on in this internet thingy.
Yeah, I did an interview with my friend David Immel over on my
Hmm.
Patreon, and I'm trying to get better at podcasting. It's something I'm really, really bad at.
So far, so
And
good.
oh, thank you. Um, and with David's interview, like as I was editing it, I learned a lot. I learned everything in the edit, really.
Hmm.
It wasn't like a great flow, but then we started talking about like ideas we had for videos,
Hmm.
and we just started bouncing ideas back and forth.
Yeah.
And instantly it felt fun and energized and like that's a space I love occupying with other creators. What are you working on? What ideas do you have? What's something you thought you could never make and now you're trying to make? Or what's an idea you've had that you thought was really bad and you didn't make? It's so fun. It's so fun because we're all in this for the same. Well, a lot of us are in this for the same reason, which is to make stuff.
Honestly, that sounds like a really fun podcast format. That's different, but still on the creator side.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. I have some ideas. We could brainstorm if you want. I love brainstorming as we're talking about.
Sure.
Okay, so I have this idea.
Hmm.
I'm about to take this off the rails.
Go for it.
That's what I'm about to do. So I need to figure out like a good format for talking to people. I love talking to people. I'm very curious
Hmm.
about people. But I learned that you can't just go into a podcast wanting to know about someone. You have to like
Yes.
have a focus.
Yes.
So I thought I could do like 3 things I didn't know. So every person I sit down with tells me 3 things that I didn't know. But even that is like way too open. Like if I ask you right now, tell me something that I don't know.
Um,
See, it's hard.
yeah,
Go ahead, go
because
ahead. I'm
because
gonna let you
what
cook.
is the context? I can probably pull out a story about Vienna. I can probably look at stuff on my desk. I can
Yeah,
tell you that I had chili for lunch. Like that's something you didn't know.
that's true. I didn't know that. You're right. Okay, so it's got to be more focused. So maybe it's like 3 things I didn't know about creators because you talk to a lot of creators.
Mm.
Could you tell me 3 things I don't know about creators?
The challenge with you asking this question is I have no idea what you know, right? And
Yes.
the reason why I immediately jumped on this, like, let's talk about ideas podcast, is it's very clear and it's just a casual conversation that evolves around the topic but can go places, right? With these,
Mm,
I give me 3 things. It's very what's the word?
vague.
Not vague, but just kind of too conceptual for me at least, right? There's many different podcast genres out there, but I don't really enjoy these conceptual shows. It's maybe that's for a short form format. That could be interesting,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you just inviting other creators and be like, "Hey, let's talk about some ideas that you have that are never going to work." And then throughout the process, you figure out a version that could work. That's something I'm subscribing
Yes.
to immediately.
Okay. Yes, I agree with you. I'd love that. The problem is I don't want to talk to just creators.
Fair.
And so how do I
Well, but
adapt that for
everybody has
like a
ideas.
CEO of a company? Okay. All right. So it
Oh,
doesn't have to be about
yeah. You can have Sundar in there and be like, what's a product you want to make, but it's just not happening. They might
mhm.
not talk about that like very openly, but maybe the Nothing CEO would.
Yeah. This is so good. Thank you so much. Now where my brain goes is okay, if that's the idea,
Hmm.
tell me about an idea you had that would never work. What do you title that podcast? My brain always,
Oh,
because I'm YouTube, so my brain always goes to like, what's the title? Okay, bad idea. I always think of a bad idea first.
okay.
The one that got away.
Too vague, but this will never work.
Ooh, this is so good. At the beginning, you made me give a disc like a an okay that you can use all this
Yeah.
footage. Now I'm asking you if you could state your name and tell me that I can take that idea.
My name is Valentin Farkash, and yeah, you can have that idea. Ideas are cheap. You can have as many as you want. That's another
Thank you so
thing I
much.
learned. I'm a person who has ideas by the minute almost. And it's just about executing those ideas. That's where it becomes valuable. But the ideas itself, oof, there's so many on the back burner, if you want, that are never gonna get made.
What stops you from executing them?
Sometimes it's time and resources, but very often it's just like I'm not that passionate about it. Like, yeah, that's a cool idea, but I'm not going to stick with it for more than a month.
I'm very like fresh on my own channel, but I've been
Hmm.
having that thought recently of like, what happens when I'm tired of this? But I think that goes back to like the people follow people thing.
Yeah.
Is that as long as I'm true to myself and I keep making videos that I find interesting, hopefully I'll find an audience that does too. Fingers crossed. But
Are
yeah.
you at all thinking about building a team yourself or bringing people into your channel in any kind of way?
Yes. 100%. I definitely have plans in that area. I don't want to say too much out loud.
Of course.
Usually I'm like I'll just tell everyone all of my plans. But this one's a little bit closer to home. Um, I definitely want to expand the team. There's parts of this job that I don't love and I don't want to do. And there's also opportunities for me to grow that there are simply not enough hours in the day for me to grow there.
Mm-hmm. I've been
And
there.
I know people that are very good at things that I am not very good at. And I would love to bring them on. I'm a really terrible boss, not only for other people, but for myself. And I would love to
Mm.
have somebody who can tell me what I should and should not be spending my time on every day. That's something I learned at the Verge. I like managed people for quite literally a month, and it was bad for them. It was bad for me. It was bad for all people involved. And I do much better when there's someone telling me what to do, and I can just kind of make stuff within that confine. Um, so yes, definitely plans to grow. When that will happen, I don't know. This is an incredibly unpredictable business, um, so time will tell.
It is an unpredictable business and it definitely ebbs and flows. But it's going to be interesting to see your trajectory, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes I can feel eyes watching me, uh, I welcome it. Obviously, please watch my successes and my failures. Learn from them, be a part of them. Choose to interact with them any way you see fit.
Mm.
Um, but that's another thing I try not to give too much time to.
One more topic I do want to talk to you about is this whole job title journalism versus creator thing, because I come from entertainment filmmaking or the media industry. I'm not trained as a journalist, but over the last year or so I've been working more and more with proper journalists, and for a while I've seen myself as such, or at least kind of going in that direction. But then I recently saw an interview with John Oliver, who proudly calls himself not a journalist. On the other hand, Marquez has this skit where he sits in the back of a cab and plays this roulette of what's your job title when you. And I feel like he is a very clear example of just a tech journalist. Even he struggles with this job title situation. And yeah, I don't know, how do you feel about it? What's your are you still a journalist? Were you a journalist before? I don't even know how to
Yeah.
phrase this question.
It's a really weird space at the moment, because there's influencers, there's creators, there's journalists. I feel like those are the three main titles
Yeah,
I see in this weird Venn diagram.
sure.
And I think sometimes they definitely cross, and sometimes they definitely don't. If you search me on Google, it will say journalist.
Hmm.
At least it did yesterday. I'm waiting for them to change that. And here's why. I was taught to be a journalist at The Verge, and I'm forever grateful for that. To be rigorous, to have sources for everything that you say, um, to not take sides, to not take money. That's a big one. Um, to not take the free trips. Um, to really have standards and ethics. And I think that the content creation space lacks standards and ethics for reasons that are sometimes out of creators' controls. These are small businesses. We have to, in the US, my health insurance is insane monthly fee. Insane. And that's just for me to live and to trust that if something happens to me, I will be able to protect myself.
Hmm.
So sometimes you have to get paid. Whereas in a true journalist works for a company, And they don't have that on the line. And I think that's what makes them like a true journalist. But that being said, there are many creators who are doing really in depth investigations, who are going far deeper than some journalists are, um, talking to more sources, um, making a longer video, bringing up more points. So it gets sticky because that same person might take, money from, I don't know, a camera company or something that they cover. And then it's like, well, are you a journalist if that company paid you? So even in my response, it's kind of like all over the place. But that's how I feel about this title, which is why I just say I'm a content creator. And I say that really proudly because it is what I do. I feed the internet content. And I like to think that I do it with more of a journalistic eye because I've been trained in that way. Um, but at the end of the day, I quite literally create content. It's sticky.
It's sticky, and it's, there's so many arguments on all the aspects as you just mentioned, because there is not a journalistic publication out there that doesn't have advertisers. So even if a reporter not doesn't take money, the publication still has to fund the whole operation. It's never this black and white. And there's, I think we all know people who are called journalists who are very biased and objective, right? So,
Yeah.
and on the other hand, yeah, there are no set rules or standard for content creators because we all make our own rules. That's, I think, one big part why we're doing that. Maybe that's going to change. Maybe a few of us are going to get together and like set some rules. I was at a conference earlier this year talking a lot about AI and how production houses have their rules of interacting with AI, what is allowed and what is not allowed. And I've been
Yeah.
thinking for myself, okay, what are my internal standards for using AI tools? I haven't like come to like a real like guidebook or anything, but I have like two, three guidelines, I would say, that I can use AI and not worry about anything, right? So maybe we'll see that also in the broader content creator space.
I did a video about V Spear, who is the person behind Under the Desk News, which is like a popular political. See, I'm even like channel profile. I like
Yeah.
it's like what do you call it? It's not an outlet. And when I was making that video, they consider themselves, at the time at least, a journalist. And I was struggling with what to call them myself because while they did report on news, they also have a heavy personal opinion about what they're reporting on, which is what resonates online for them and their audience. But it was really hard. Like, you can go and watch that video, and I try to define it at the beginning and then in the middle. And even after making that whole video, spending like 3 weeks deeply thinking about what makes a journalist, I couldn't come to a conclusion. And I think with a lot of things, sometimes it's easier to say what's not journalism than what is.
Yeah.
But it's tough. We're humans and we're messy. And we have these lived experiences. I'm going to say that again because of the truck. We have these lived experiences that change the way we feel about things and react to them.
If you ever discover the joy of writing and want to write down your what that actually means, the with the journalistic mindset, I would love to read that, or maybe just record a video about it. But I would really like to understand that a little bit more, what that means in the creator space, right?
That's a great idea. Well, I have to write that down. uh, I get the best ideas from everyone else. Um, and I just write them down endlessly. The comment section is gold for ideas.
Yeah, you get the best ideas from conversations. Is there anything you still want to mention or talk about? Any specific topic?
No, I don't think so. I think, I've like, I've mentioned this a bunch, but I am really grateful. And I understand that the position I entered this, like, creating a YouTube space in was unique. And I also, like, came in with a huge head start. And that's not lost on me. And I see these are the comments that sometimes get to me, is people that like, of course you're doing well. You came from the Verge, or
Hmm.
you already had this huge head start. And it's like, yeah, I know that, and I'm grateful for it. But I also worked really hard at the Verge. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into like everything I do, um, and I was working just as many hours for them as I am for myself. Which is to say that if it's a product that I'm making, I'm putting my whole being into it. Um, so it's not lost on me, the privilege I had in creating this.
Mm.
Um, but I am going to take that and use that and build something really great with it.
So if you think about this person who wants to start a YouTube channel or just wants to make content online, but they just haven't taken that first step or fallen off the wagon, so to speak, what would you tell them?
Be yourself first and foremost, because if you try to put on an act, it's only going to last for so long. But who you are as a person is pretty steadfast, and it might grow and change, but it will do it organically. So be yourself. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're going to fail hard. Keep failing. Keep going. And then just don't stop. Be relentless in your pursuits. And if quickly you realize that you don't like doing something, change or stop. Because while it's important to be relentless, you can only really do it if you really care and you really want it.
And if you think about where you're now, with this new endeavor, what does success
Yeah.
look like to you?
Ooh, wow. I'm surprised that more people haven't asked me this, and I'm kind of happy that they didn't. So
Always got to ask the questions that other people don't.
that's another good piece of advice. Um, for me, there's so many things I want, like the obvious things. It'd be amazing to have 1 million subscribers someday. Okay. Yeah, I'll
Sure.
know I'll made it then.
Sure.
But I think what I've learned is that it's not about those like big swings. It's like the everyday little things. So success to me is many, many things. Right now I have 200K. I have I have like I'm a vision board person.
Hmm.
So I have like things around my spaces that remind me of like what I want. So like 200K right now is on my computer.
Nice.
Um that I it was the goal when I started was always 100K by Christmas, and then I smashed that in 30 days,
Yeah, you crushed that.
which shocking. So now it's 200K. So that if I hit that, I say by the end of the year, but that feels really tight, and I want to be kind to myself. So that's just the next goal. I'll feel good when I reach that. The other thing is like being able to stop dipping into savings. I'll know when I don't have to, because that's getting low, and I'll know when I don't have to do that anymore. That will feel really good. Um, and then just like feeling happy, feeling excited every day is like a goal. Um, and most days I feel that, but um, I just want to keep that up. So there's not like this big like I'll know I made it when, but all those little things for now are what drive me. What about
I
you?
think the happy part is really important. Success really means being able to do what I'm doing right now for the long term. I mean,
Yeah,
I have incredibly large ambitions and visions for all of this. But as long as everything just enables me to have fun conversations with creators, it's all good, right? And everything else
yeah.
is kind of just an outcome out of that. If people don't already know you and follow you, what's the best place to connect with you? How can people join your orbit?
My bread and butter is YouTube. I try to post once a week, once every other week.
Hmm.
Um, I update my Instagram stories with kind of behind the scenes photos of what I'm doing. So be sure to check me out there if you just want to see a look into my life. But more so than ever, I have a Patreon. that I am very active in, and a chat that I'm very active in. And I post a lot more there about how I do what I do. And I'm going to start ramping up more like teaching stuff there of like how I light, how I edit, what cameras I use. So that's probably the best space if you want to like really be in it. But of course, it also is like a paid thing. So it starts at $5 a month. Um, but uh, but that's my big focus. So those are the places you can catch me.
Yeah. Nice little sales pitch. I like it.
You got to small business owner.
Yeah. Becca, this was fun. This was really good. Thanks so much for
Thank
taking
you
the
so much for
time.
having me.
Yeah. And maybe we'll
Yeah.
do that again.
Yes, I can't wait to see how you edit this because all your videos are so well edited and the conversations are so like tight. And I threw some curveballs.
That's it. That was my conversation with Becca. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. If you take anything away from this conversation, it would be awesome if you could leave a comment down below. And if you're new here, my name is Valentin. This is the Orbit for Creators YouTube channel, where we have conversations with relatable creators, people who are on the same level as you, people you can actually learn from. If that sounds interesting to you, go hit subscribe. And if you want practical tips on how to become a better creator, check out the Orbit newsletter. I'll link to that down below. And I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.
So I left that all behind, fly to London. I was the only person recording videos on a freaking YouTuber meetup. This is where I first met Ali, but to be fair, I didn't even really meet him. Before working with Nathaniel, I actually hated editing. Why I actually started, it was an accident, really.